The moon hung low in the sky, casting a blood-red light over the land of Lysera. It was the eve of the blood moon, a time when the kingdom's rulers, those cursed lichens, took their true forms. Under the pale, crimson glow, the trees in the dense forests trembled, as if whispering secrets to one another. The land seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for something that could either save or destroy them all. Rhea stood at the edge of the forest, hidden among the thick branches of a towering oak. Her dark cloak blended with the shadows, and her eyes, sharp and filled with purpose, never wavered from the towering castle that stood at the heart of the kingdom. Inside, Ryan, the Alpha King, waited for the moon to rise. The ruler of the Lycans, cursed by his ancestors, was about to turn into the very monster he fought to control. "Tonight, I end it," Rhea whispered to herself, tightening her grip on the dagger hidden beneath her cloak. Her family had been taken by the Lycans years ago, their lives snuffed out in the wake of the Alpha King's rule. She had trained for this moment her entire life, preparing to end the curse that plagued her people, and tonight she would do it. But Rhea wasn't prepared for what she found when she entered the castle. The grandeur of the royal hall was overwhelming, its high ceilings stretching toward the heavens. The walls were adorned with portraits of kings and queens long past, their eyes seeming to watch her as she passed. The scent of rich wood and ancient stone filled her senses. Every step she took echoed, a reminder that she was in the heart of the enemy's domain. She had expected to find a monster, one that would easily fall to her blade. But what she found was a man. Ryan stood before a tall mirror, his back to her, his shoulders broad, his hair dark and wild. His posture was that of a king, but his face, a mixture of strength and sorrow, was anything but the face of a monster. He was tall, almost too tall, and his body was built with the grace and power of someone who had been shaped by centuries of ruling. "I knew you'd come," he said without turning, his voice deep and haunting. "You always do." Rhea froze, her dagger still hidden beneath her cloak. How had he known? She hadn't made a sound, but she had learned long ago that the Alpha King was no ordinary ruler. His senses were sharper than any man's, and his connection to the moon gave him powers beyond comprehension. "You don't have to do this," he continued, his voice soft yet commanding. "I understand your hatred. I am the monster you seek to destroy." Rhea's heart pounded in her chest, and for a moment she hesitated. This wasn't how she had imagined it. She had planned for this moment for years, and yet here she stood, in the presence of the very man she had vowed to kill. "The man who had taken everything from her. Then why do you wear the crown?" Rhea asked, her voice cold, but there was a crack in it. She could feel her resolve weakening. "Why do you let your people suffer under your curse?" Ryan turned then, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. There was pain in those eyes, pain that had nothing to do with the curse and everything to do with his own heart. "I don't want this," he said quietly, stepping closer. "I never asked for this power. The curse is mine, but it is not what I am. You don't understand." Rhea stepped back, her breath shallow. She had to stay focused. The moon was almost at its peak, and soon the transformation would begin. She had no time to listen to his words. Yet something in his voice, the raw sincerity, made her pause. "I've heard the stories," Rhea replied, her eyes narrowed. "I've heard the way the Lycans speak of you, the Alpha King who rules with an iron fist, the monster who feeds on the blood of the innocent." Ryan flinched at her words, as though they cut deeper than any blade. His jaw tightened and his fists clenched at his sides. But he did not shout, nor did he raise his voice. Instead, he stood there, still and heavy with the weight of his burden. "You believe the stories," he said softly, almost as though speaking to himself. "But they are lies. The truth is darker than you think." He stepped closer again, his gaze never leaving hers. "I am cursed. Every night when the moon rises, I lose myself. I become something I can't control. A beast, a monster, something I hate. And when I change, I kill without mercy. You see only the man who sits on the throne, but the real me is chained by the moon, and I fear I will never be free." Rhea swallowed hard, fighting the emotions that threatened to surface. This was not the king she had been told about. This was a man, broken, burdened, and trapped by his own curse. But still, the weight of her family's loss, of the destruction his rule had caused, pressed down on her. She could not, would not, let herself feel pity. "You want me to believe you?" Rhea asked, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "You want me to believe that you are just a victim? That your hands aren't stained with the blood of my people?" Rian's face softened, and for a brief moment there was no anger in his eyes, only a deep, desperate sadness. "I didn't choose this," he said, "and every day I fight to control the beast inside me. But it's not enough. The moon's power is too strong, and every time it rises, I lose more of who I am. So yes, I am a monster, but I am also a man who is trying to survive in a world that has never given me a choice." Rhea stood frozen, torn between her anger and the strange pull in her chest. This was the Alpha King, the monster who had caused so much pain. And yet here he was, so broken, so human. Before she could say anything more, a sound echoed through the hall. A low growl followed by a fierce snarl. The transformation was beginning. Rhea's heart raced as she stepped back, readying herself to strike. But Rian's voice stopped her. "Leave now," he said, his voice raw with desperation. "I am no good for you. You should run. You still have time." Rhea hesitated, her dagger still in her hand. She wanted to run. She wanted to leave this place and never look back. But something stopped her. The rawness of his words, the truth behind them, held her in place. The growl grew louder, and Rhea felt the air shift around them. She could sense it. The beast inside him was awakening. His body began to change, the muscles bulging, his eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight. His skin rippled as fur sprouted, and his teeth sharpened into deadly points. "You're right," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You are a monster." Rian's transformation halted as he looked at her one last time, his eyes full of regret. "And you are the only one who could ever save me." Before Rhea could respond, the full force of the transformation took him. The Alpha King was no more. Only the monster remained, and in that moment, Rhea knew. This was just the beginning. The blood-red moon hung high in the sky, casting its eerie light over the castle. Inside, the silence was broken only by the sounds of heavy breathing and the occasional growl that echoed through the halls. The beast that had once been Rayan was now fully awakened, its glowing eyes searching the darkness, hungry and wild. Rhea stood frozen at the edge of the throne room, her heart racing as she watched the transformation unfold before her. The creature in front of her was no longer the man she had met, no longer the king who had spoken to her with such raw honesty. The Alpha King, now a beast of legend, stood before her, his massive form covered in dark, coarse fur. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his fangs were sharp enough to tear through stone. Yet, even in this terrifying form, there was something familiar about him, something that echoed the man she had met moments ago. Rhea took a step back, her hand gripping the dagger at her side. She knew what she had to do. This was the moment. She had come here to end it, to destroy the Alpha King and break the curse that had tormented her people for so long. But standing before him now, in the midst of his transformation, she wasn't sure if she was ready to kill him. The beast's gaze locked onto her, its eyes filled with a fierce intensity. For a moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped. Rhea's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to steady her breath. She had come here to kill him. But now, she wasn't sure she could. With a low growl, the creature lunged forward, its powerful legs carrying it toward her in a blur of motion. Rhea barely had time to react. She sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the beast's snapping jaws. The sound of claws scraping against stone filled the room as the creature skidded to a halt, its eyes never leaving hers. Rhea's mind raced. She had always known that Rian's curse was a terrible one. But now, seeing it firsthand, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sorrow for him. He was a prisoner of the moon, trapped in a cycle he couldn't escape. And yet the creature before her was also a king, a ruler, a man who had once carried the weight of an entire kingdom on his shoulders. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. I didn't come here to kill you, the creature growled again, its chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. It was a sound that was both terrifying and mournful. Rhea could feel the weight of its pain, and for a brief moment she felt her resolve faltering. She had been so sure of her mission, so certain that killing Rian was the only way to free her people from the curse. But now, standing in front of the beast he had become, she wasn't so sure anymore. With every passing second, the beast seemed to struggle against itself, as if it was fighting for control. The glowing eyes flickered for a moment, and Rhea thought she saw something in them, a brief flash of recognition. But before she could make sense of it, the creature lunged again, this time knocking her to the ground. The dagger fell from her hand, skittering across the stone floor as Rhea struggled to push the beast off of her. Her heart raced as she realized that the transformation was not just physical, it was something deeper, something that had taken hold of Ryan's very soul. For a brief moment, the creature seemed to hesitate, its massive paws resting on Rhea's chest. She could feel its breath on her skin, hot and heavy, and yet as she stared into its eyes, she saw something there, something human, something that made her heart ache. "You don't have to do this," Rhea said, her voice soft but steady. "Please, fight it. I know you're still in there." The creature growled again, but this time it was softer, less violent. Rhea could see the struggle in its eyes, the battle between man and beast that raged within. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The air between them was thick with tension, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Then, with a sudden jolt, the beast let out a sharp guttural cry, a sound filled with pain and rage. The creature's form seemed to shrink, its body trembling as if it were being torn apart. Rhea could see the change happening before her eyes. The fur began to recede, the claws retracting. And as the moon reached its highest point, the beast was gone, replaced by the man who had once been Rian, the Alpha King. Rhea's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him. His body was still large, but now it was human, barely. His skin was slick with sweat, his hair wild and disheveled. But his eyes were still filled with that same sadness, that same pain. He staggered to his feet, clearly struggling to regain control of his body. His hands clenched at his sides, his jaw tight with effort. Rhea slowly stood up, watching him carefully. She didn't know what to say or what to do. But she knew one thing for certain. This was not the monster she had been told to destroy. You're still in there," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. Rian's eyes flickered to hers, and for a moment, she saw the man, the king, she had spoken to earlier. He was there, trapped beneath the beast's power. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice hoarse. "I didn't want this. I never wanted any of this." Rhea took a tentative step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen a man so broken, so lost. He was a king, yes, but he was also a prisoner, a man who had been cursed to live a life of endless suffering. "I can help you," Rhea said, her voice filled with determination. "I don't know how, but I will find a way to break this curse. You don't have to live like this." Rian shook his head, his eyes filled with pain. "You don't understand. There is no cure for what I am. This is who I am now." Rhea reached out and placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. "No," she said, her voice steady. "You're not just the monster. You're still Rian. The man I spoke to earlier, he's still in there, and I won't give up on you." For a moment, Ryan's gaze softened, and Rhea could see a flicker of hope in his eyes. But it was quickly replaced by doubt, and he turned away, pulling himself out of her reach. "You don't know what you're asking," he said, his voice quiet, almost broken. "If you stay with me, you'll only bring more pain." Rhea's heart ached as she watched him, torn between the man she had come to care for and the king who had been cursed to become something he could not control. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, filled with more danger and more heartbreak. But she couldn't walk away now, not when she knew that the man inside him was still worth saving. "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "I'll help you find a way. Together." And with that, Rhea took his hand, knowing that the battle for Ryan's soul was far from over. But for the first time, she believed that there was a chance for him. a chance for both of them.